Disclaimer. These stories will contain graphic depictions of horror elements, including, but not limited to, gore, graphic depictions of violence, body horror, murder, just all the horror. So please exercise caution when listening. Good evening. Welcome to Sniper's Creepy Crypt, the spookiest place in the here and there, the place between where you're coming from and where you might never leave. I am Sniper Shadow, and I am here in this our month of the horror and macabre to bring you tales of the utmost terrifying. These tales are not my own. I simply overhear them from passers-by. Sniper's Creepy Crypt is open for 31 days and 31 days only, before it disappears for another year. So join us for some horror from the depths of the hell dimensions.
Part 1. When the moon shines bright on Charlie Chaplin. The guns fell silent against the slow dimming of light, leaving only the mist. Eerie stillness punctuated by the odd cough, an errant moan, the flick of a lighter lighting a cigarette, an orange spark breaking through the white, and then nothing. We had been at the front for 14 days, 14 long, ageless days. Those who came in as young boys full of youth now were aged and stern. Hid away in burrows with names like King's Cross, Rat's Alley, Piccadilly Gardens. The irony was palatable. We halted our advance near Polaris, where the Germans were dug in well. On quieter nights you could hear them sometimes, snatches of song, or a chuckle at a joke, laughter, screams. I didn't hate them then, as I came to later. Sergeant Sheriff, a portly man with a thin moustache and cheeks like butcher's meat, interrupted my thoughts. "Sir," he said, "do you think the attack will come soon? We've been waiting too long, and I'd like to get it over with. Give the bastards a kick. I can't take all this waiting, nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes, it's awful." I gave him a strange look, hearing these last words tinged with familiarity, but the thought was soon lost, and I told him it'd be any day now, and his fat cheeks puffed out with the vague satisfaction of someone in a hospital waiting room who knows he's about to be called upon soon. I was lighting a cigarette when Private Evelyn, my runner, a young Lancastrian lad, came full pelt into me, knocking it out of my hands and into the thick mud. "God damn it, man! Watch your bloody step!" I roared. "A message from Captain Bedhead, sir," he said, panting. "They want us to make a push to capture the Germans' forward trenches at first light, in preparation for the Aussies' attack in the next few days." "I see," I said, pulling another cigarette out from a dog-eared packet and putting it into my mouth. "Right then, Sergeant Sheriff, make the men aware of the situation. Issue them a glass of wine each. We'll attack at first light. Private Evelyn, inform the artillery." "Aye, sir," the fat sergeant responded. Private Evelyn, too, nodded before snaking off through the labyrinth of pathways of the trench. The trenches, like arteries, red with clay, winding through the ancient lands. The rain fell in sheets, carrying with it the ominous smell of pestilence and death, bully beef, and phosgene gas. I sucked the smoke from the cigarette deep into my lungs, letting the foul tobacco stench wash away the smell of decay and death. And lifting my head to the rain, I let out a sigh, watching the darkening clouds. The silence of the night carried with it the anxiety of 1,000 undead men, those in limbo waiting for the moment they passed. Nobody spoke about it, but we all expected to die. Carried too on the silence were the sounds of radio far off, somewhere in the distance, distorted and vague. It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. Goodbye, Piccadilly, to the sweetest girl I know. Lance Corporal Beauregard shifted in his bunk. What a lovely war," he uttered, before passing back to sleep. I stayed a while, listening to the words of the song, listening and unlistening. Sleep did not come easily to me. Morning was marked by darkness and mist. The first few shafts of light were beginning to be seen above the horizon, penetrating the blue-black gloom with hazy orange light. The men were already at attention, awaiting the whistle's knell to charge towards the enemy, to that hell mouth. Many fumbled at letters or with their rifles, but most just stared at nothing, eyes glazed over with false bravado of the damned. "Right, lads," I started. "They have a shortage." "Of what, sir? Ammunition?" Private Phillips joined in to this old joke. "Negative, Private. Of corpses. So we're going to charge over there, and we're going to see if we can help them out." This elicited a few false chuckles from the men. "If we can capture and hold their trenches, then we'll be in a fine position to support the Australians as they assault Monquet Farm. Our artillery boys will support us before the attack, and then we'll take them. 10 minutes tops. Not too bad, right, lads?" The men shuffled and murmured and stared at their feet. "Corporal Topolus will provide you each with a cigarette and a glass of whiskey, compliments of Captain Ryder. And we know how much those front-dogging bastards back at headquarters love their whiskey, so you can feel ruddy special, lads." Cheers and jeers resounded down the line as the whiskey was poured out into tremulous hands. I, too, took a cupful and drank it in one firm, foul gulp. Then the laughter and talk dissipated, and once again there was silence in the mist. I shouted to the men, "Ready arms." The clacks of reloading rifles echoed down the line. I put the whistle to my mouth, too. I took a shaking breath unsteady in the frosty air, hands trembling, and blew. Part 2. Strange Meetings. It was Privates Howards and Phillips who got it first, I saw. Stumbling, falling back into the trenches like sackcloth dolls. I pressed on, blowing the whistle and holding my revolver firmly in the air. The cold metal felt leaden in my hand. Machine gun fire erupted and tore up the ground in blankets of chaotic dirt, tore through men like rain through newspaper. And then came too the shelling. For a moment, a glimpse of Corporal Manning, red-faced and screaming against the tide, then a screeching across the sky. Whirlwind of dust and blood, a kaleidoscope of gore, and then silence, the ringing in my ears. Corporal Manning, nothing but one scorched patch of dirt on a blooded battlefield. Corporal Manning, gone. We were many, and then we were few, and the few separated from the many found themselves stumbling blind through the chaos. I fired a few shots ahead of me and groaned, the earth shifting underfoot as the barrage rained down upon us. Further into the fog, I saw a Brody helmet. Running towards them and diving to the ground, I realized it was Private Evelyn, and somebody else I did not recognize. "Who wouldn't be a soldier?" Evelyn said bitterly, through broken teeth. The other soldier raised his rifle and fired aimlessly into the blinding fog. Then came once more the screeching. Time appeared to hasten. I heard the crash, felt the shrapnel and the dirt land upon my body, raining down hot and painful. I saw the unknown soldier crawling on the dirt, crawling away from his lower half, separated from the upper, long red intestines trailing like fat, ripe worms. I felt it too. The bullet pierced my shoulder. I saw the screaming mouth of Private Evelyn shouting wordlessly to me. With nothing better to do, I tried to laugh and blacked out. I awoke, coughing, amid an unnerving silence. Sand filled my mouth and rained down upon my body. The sky overhead was a dim purple. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a cigarette, placing it in my mouth and lighting it with a flick of a match. I wanted to smoke Vogue, I thought. I wanted a pretty young mademoiselle, I thought. Wanted to be back in Oxford with Professor Pound and Mr. Shadrach. I smoked a cigarette, looked at the purple-red sky, undulating like waves above my head. It didn't occur to me then that this was not where I had been 10 minutes ago. I smoked the cigarette and thought of little winding avenues to ride one's bicycle down, of the bookstore, and the tea room, the public house with wooden walls where the undergraduates drank pints of bitter and discussed poetry and the European influence. I thought of my old roommate, good old Lachm. He'd been killed. Or had he? What regiment was he in? What was it that I'd studied? Had I studied? I sat up. I was sat on one patch of sand of many, a vast golden desert. A soft wind blew grains of sand through my fingers. In the distance were dunes, figures, too, I saw. It was Private Evelyn with Sergeant Sheriff unpacking their kit, using their greatcoat in what looked like some sort of perverse picnic. I wandered towards them. "I do believe we're fucked, sir," the sheriff said matter-of-factly. "Fucked?" I asked him. "Buggered, sir," Evelyn added. "Lad's right, sir," Sheriff said. "I might have never finished school or went to university like you, sir, but I am decent enough at geography to understand that this ain't France." Quite right, I said, reached for a cigarette, but I was out. Through gritted teeth, I cursed under breath and wiped my hand across my forehead. "Well, chin up. Let's try to find some of the others. See if they know anything we do not," I said. For what felt like aeons under that purple blazing sun, I at the head of the column, followed by the young private and the portly sergeant in the rear. Find others we did. First, just the odd soldier, stumbling lost through the sand, clawing, half-mad. Then clumps of them. I recognize a few. Corporal Topoulos, Lieutenant Crouchback, Private Moresi. We were camped under the red-purple skies, a fire blazing from a few scraps of wood the men could scrounge. Private Evelyn lay on his side, staring off behind the dunes. His soft, melancholy voice sang quietly. "There's a long, long trail a-winding to the land of my dreams." The other men joined in, looking dejected, faces half-lit amidst the tremulous light. "Where the nightingales are singing and a white moon beams." I was smoking from a wooden pipe I'd found in an abandoned kit. I exhaled and joined the song. "There's a long, long night of waiting until all my dreams come true." All the men sung, forceful and melancholy, interspersed with the crackling of the firewood. "Till the day where I'll be going down that long, long trail with you." The singing gave way to whistling, and I could have cried. I curled myself up into a ball, away from the men and that maddening crowd, my eyes fixated on that nightmare sky and my thoughts of a half-remembered home. Why could I not remember it? I wanted to see my mother again. The men were so very young, and I was young too, I thought. To them I was ancient. I fell asleep, and the sand blew faintly over us as we slept. The day started well. Sheriff and Topoulos found a uniform in the desert, laid out in the shape of a man. Brody helmet, khaki boots. In lieu of a face were stones, 2 for eyes, and a number of them arranged in a grim smile. It was not this disturbing discovery that made the day well, but rather the 4 bottles of wine also there, 2 for hands and 2 for feet. I let the men drink the wine. Morale was low enough in this hellscape, and I too partook. The day started well, but that did not last very long. We were half cut when we found it. The men sung bawdy songs and threw the empty bottles across an emptier horizon to be swallowed up by the sand. This ceased when we found the monolith. There, in the empty plains, a sunken monolith which stretched improbably up into the sky, adorned with crude carvings of faces, laughing and screaming, surrounded by chunks of stone, in the desert, barren and bare. "Signs of life, sir?" asked Sergeant Sheriff. "If this can be called life," added a dour-faced private. "Hi, at least they're happy to see us," laughed Corporal Topoulos, pointing at the smiling visages on the stone monolith. "Kinda looks like your sister, Sergeant," said Evelyn, drunkenly laughing. He pressed his lips to cold stone, and in an instant became one with it. His hand stuck to the stone, and it pulled him in, skin expanding. He screamed. His body was dragged further into the monolith, absorbing his flesh. It stretched out like puddles. The bones cracked and ripped, as if they were water. He screamed, and his eyes were wide with unending terror. "Oh God, no, please, sir. Oh God, help me!" The screaming went on until only Private Evelyn's face was left, slowly turning to stone, the terrified eyes becoming hollow and grey as he was fully absorbed into the monolith, his face twisting, turning, widening in the Gaia. Some men took out their revolvers and fired upon the monolith, but achieved only dust. And those two bullet holes that were his eyes. Private Evelyn's visage a portrait of eternal agony. A faint gurgling from the monolith, and then silence. Naught but the faintly blowing wind across the endless gold dunes. I lit my pipe, and we moved on. That night at camp we did not speak. Each man was left to their own private thoughts. Beside our campfire, I sat alone, caressing the barrel of my Webley revolver, aiming it out at nothing, mimicking a shot. I drank the dregs of the wine and succumbed to an uneasy sleep. I woke, suddenly, by the scrambling of men and the cocking of rifles. I jumped up and I held my revolver out. "Why in the hell?" I heard one man say. Figures. Faces. Figures in their thousands were shambling across the sands, tumbling down dunes towards our camp. 100 feet from us they stopped. They stood still, looking at us. The gun trembled in my hands. Out of the horde came a man in a strange green uniform. The inscription read U.S. Army, Kakato. He spoke with an American accent. "Relax, friends," said the man. "Address yourself at once, soldier," I insisted with a shaking breath. The man laughed. "Name's Kakato. First name's Timothy. Master Sergeant, United States Army. I fell to in fire and smoke. I saw the napalm as it lit up my friend, my captain. Oh, Captain Pierce, how he screamed. I, too, felt the bayonet as it pierced my guts and the screaming face of the bastard that killed me. I befriended him later, though. Now we're inseparable." "What the bloody hell is this place?" I said, half mad, my revolver pointed at the man's face. "This place is beyond the Valley of Death Roads, beyond the western lands. After the fall of the cities of Red Night, this is the Desert of Shadows. We are at Shadow's play. We are not meant to be here, but we cannot pass through. You'll understand, my friend, in time." And then, as if out of nowhere, thousands of figures stepped forward. Some ancient, wielding swords, some uniforms of bright red, and hats of white. Some I could recognize. Some in uniforms of metal I couldn't describe, carrying weapons beyond anything I could comprehend. Another man stepped forward, who wore a blue shirt and a slouch hat. He spoke with an Australian accent. "Oi, the man there's right. Name's Beckett. We're not meant to be here. and neither are you. What'd you do to end up here, eh? Me? Oh, I got it at Gallipoli. Well, me and my mates were in trouble, so I shot dead a stupid sergeant, but I got hit in the crossfire. Woke up here. The Australian soldier lit a rolled-up cigarette and exhaled casually as if bored by all this. The American placed a hand on my shoulder as my men readied their rifles at this ungodly mob. The American spoke again. This is your world now, my friend. Come and join us in this procession of the damned. No, you're all wrong. This is madness. There is another world. There is a better world. There must be. Damn you and this foul place, this nightmare, this madness. There is a better world. There must be. Stop. I couldn't take it, and in short, I was afraid. I ran. I heard the clambering of men behind me. I knew not if they were my lads or the nightmare army, that damned procession of hell's soldiers. I heard the American's voice shouting after me. What's your name, officer and gentleman? I stumbled in the thick sand, twirling back, firing 2 shots of my Webley with mad carelessness. The American did not stumble. What's your name? Did you have a pretty mademoiselle? A tight little Fräulein? Did you meet them by the cinema and smoke a cigarette, talk about nothing? He laughed further. Does that take you back to Oxford? What was it you studied under Professor Pound? Was it? Or Professor Shadrach? Why can't you recall, oh brave captain? Or is it captain? What is your rank? What, pray tell, even, is your name? I screamed something incomprehensible and ran for eons. For eons I ran. Across the endless sand, the nightmare realm. Sometimes I'd sight spires of spiraling stones in the far distance, reaching up beyond the purple-red sky. Sometimes at night I'd hear the beating of lungs, so loud in my head as if they were larger than the desert itself. I ran until I lost all sight of the unreal soldiers and of my own men. I left them to rot back there in the dust. My uniform half ragged, clutching a rusted revolver, I fell face first into the sand. The sand from the dune swelled around me, covering my body. I was too tired to fight against the tides. I closed my eyes, living too late. The guns fell silent again, the slow dimming of the light leaving only the mist. Eerie stillness punctuated by the odd cough, an errant moan, the flicker of a lighter lighting a cigarette, an orange spark breaking through the white, and then nothing. The sky above no man's land was purple-red. We had been at the front for 100 days. 100 days, long, ageless days. Those who came in young, meat, full of youth, were now aged and stern. Hid away in burrows with names like King's Cross, Rat's Alley, Monolith Mile, Piccadilly Gardens. The irony was palpable. We had halted our advantage near Polaris, where the Germans were dug in well. On quieter nights, you could hear them sometimes, snatches of song or a chuckle at a joke, laughter, screams. I hated them, the bastards. I wanted to gut them, and to hear their anguished cries. Sergeant Evelyn, a young Lancastrian lad with thin features and wild staring eyes, interrupted my thoughts. Sir, he said, do you think the attack will come soon? We've been waiting too long. I'd like to get it over with. Give the bastards a kick. Can't take all this waiting. Nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes, it's awful. I gave him a strange look, hearing these last words, tinged with familiarity. But the thought was soon lost, and I told him it'd be any day now, and his gaunt face quivered with the vague satisfaction of someone in a hospital waiting room who knows he's going to die soon enough. I caressed the barrel of my Webley and stared out across the blood-red sky, tinged with spiraling hues of purple. far across that wasteland. I pulled the pipe from my pocket, matches trembling in my hands as I halted for a reason I could not explain, before lighting up and exhaling against the endless dimming of the light.
That concludes our tale for today. Return tomorrow for another horror-filled experience. Wherever you come from and wherever you're going, thank you for spending some time here with us at Sniper's Creepy Crypt. Remember, traveler, eyes ahead, don't look back. Until next time, good night and good luck.